Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Myself. By now, this is post-school holidays. So if you were in the thick of it like me, then well done. We survived. Kids are back into routine. But you know what? I know a lot of families love school holidays, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely do as well. But there's something about having 3 teenagers out on the streets, with friends that can now drive and, wanting to go places and do, basically wanting you to feed them and give them money, but that's it. And so most of the other time you're going to sit around going, oh, okay, what's going on? So I welcome back the routine. I very much welcome back the routine. We have a shite load of winter sport coming up in our family, and I also welcome that, even though it is balls to the wall, nonstop, crazy, first thing in the morning, last night at night. I actually enjoy the routine. So anyway, wherever you sit in that, I hope you're giving yourself permission to actually feel into it. But I am also interesting over that period of time. I felt like I had a lot of introspection. I have been feeling like there's something that's about to come out of me and be birthed, and it's not a baby, for a while now. And I really struggled to take myself out of my situation, pull back that lens, and from that place of, what is this? Can I give this space? Can I give this an ability to really start fermenting and growing to find out what it is? And I did that. I actually spent at least 3 days turning everything off. I turned, social media off. I couldn't turn my kids off, but I had time on my own. I turned emails off, everything. I didn't coach for those 3 days. I literally sat in my office and went deep into my practices of separation, my practice of meditation, my practice of intuition, my practice of connecting back with spirit, my practice of, really leading from the essence of who I am and what it is I'm trying to bring and do and create and how I want to have an impact in this world. And what has come from it is really, really profound. I know that it's in those spacious moments that we actually get to see ourselves clearly. But when we are on a mission, I can't say that I'm avoiding or running from anything that I can pinpoint as we do, with my coaching clients. But what I didn't give myself space for was to create that room for that essence to really shine through. And I'm not just talking about my usual practices of a meditation in the morning and, brain dumping at night and checking in and a bit of breath work and saunas and stuff. I'm talking like nothing. Just sit in that uncomfortable silence. Do what your body is calling to do. I had a lot of movement, a lot of dance, a lot of writing, a lot of things that came up that I weren't aware was there. And I really want to share a little bit more of this in today's episode. The big picture is going to come out. You guys are going to be blown away. The big picture will come out. But what I did realize in going deep into my own process is that we don't take the time to give ourselves permission even to look at our lives outside of what we're experiencing. And that's what I want to fall into today. I think this is a really, really powerful message for any woman who is a high achiever, who works hard, who likes to create success, who wants to have an impact. If you are a coach, you absolutely have to listen to this message. If you are hitting a glass ceiling and spinning your wheels in your business, you absolutely have to listen to this message. You are going to walk away from this message with this podcast with a tool that you haven't used yet that will actually change your life. So let's just get into it. Welcome to The Pursuit of Myself, the podcast. Here we take ownership of our healing. We rewrite the rules, we turn knowledge into wisdom, and we lead our lives with intention. I'm your host, Rayne, and it's my mission to empower you to get back into the driver's seat of your life. Ask you something. When was the last time you actually stepped back from your life and looked at it? Not from inside it, not from when everything's like bubbling up and activated around you, not from in the middle of the chaos being reactive, not from your to-do list, from your role, your responsibilities, from inside your relationship, but from outside your life. When was the last time, or have you even ever stepped back and look at your life from the outside in? Because here's what we know about the women that I work with. And honestly, as I was just taking you through about myself, when you're deeply embedded in your life, you cannot see it clearly. You are too close. You're in the story, you're running the story. And when that's happening, you cannot change because all that you're doing is surviving and you're repeating the pattern. And we don't give ourselves the ability to actually sit back and say, okay, what is going on here? Now, this is actually the work that sits underneath everything, because before strategy, before goals, before any kind of decision or direction that you feel like you're getting pulled in, this is the one thing that has to happen first. You have to separate your life to actually see. So today, that is what I want to talk about. This is the practice that I've gone really deep in. This is how I mentor and coach. And I really want to pass this incredible life skill on to you, because this isn't about stepping away from your responsibilities. It's not about taking a holiday and hoping things that feel different when you get it back. It's not about booking yourself into a 5-day retreat just for a break and then coming back and getting straight back into your life. This is about something far more powerful, more confronting. It's about learning to become the actual observer of your life instead of just the participant in it. So then the question has to be asked then, and this is what I want you to ponder. Why do you think that you can't see what you're inside of? Why do you think that when you're inside something, you can't see your patterns? Because here's the thing about patterns. You actually can't spot them when you're in them. So think about it. Does a fish know when it is in water? I heard someone say this the other day and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. A fish doesn't know when it's in water because it's never been outside of water. All it knows is the pain when it gets outside of the water and it needs to get back into the water. And when you really think about that analogy, most people are the same with their lives. They are so embedded in the identity that they've built, the roles that they fill, the stories they carry, the daily rhythm of just keeping things going, work, eat, sleep, repeat. You've all heard people say that, work, eat, sleep, repeat. So when you are in that, you've actually lost the ability to actually see outside of it. Because just like the fish, the moment you get outside of that, it feels uncomfortable. So what do you want to do? You want to get back in. And really, when you're in it, it actually just feels like life. It feels like that's your reality. That's just the beginning and the end. But here's what's actually happening. So what feels like just who you are is often a pattern you adopted a long time ago that made complete sense at that time. And that has been running on autopilot ever since. So the woman who's always the capable one, always the strong one, always the one who holds it together, she's not actually choosing that consciously every single day because she's already become it. And now that, the capable, the choosing, the strong one, it just feels like her. She has become that. You do it until it doesn't work anymore, until she's exhausted, disconnected, quietly asking yourself, God, this isn't, until it doesn't work anymore. And you'll start to know it doesn't work because something inside you starts to shake. You start getting really exhausted, or maybe you feel disconnected from your life. The constant capable one means that you are the one that everyone throws everything on. But because that is normal, you pick it up and take it with you. The strong one, because you're the one that gives advice, because you're the one that's always there for everyone else, you just pick it up and take it with you because that's what people expect of you. That's what your life expects of you. But what actually happens is one day we wake up and we're like, is this really my life? Is this really me? Now, I'm not saying that those traits of being capable and strong are negative traits. But what I'm saying is, if you pick these traits up, that I need to be the strong one, I need to be the one that everyone relies on, I need to, I have to do it myself. It's just easier if I do it myself. If you pick those traits at a certain time in your life that worked for you then, maybe you are 10 years in, 3 kids down, and you suddenly can't be that person anymore. But you push and you push and you push to the exhaustion. And maybe even the eventual quiet breakdown happens. And this is what we do see a lot. And I know these patterns of personality when you're in them because I'd lived this over and over again. And this is where I've done so much work on it. I know this because I've lived it. There was that version of me that was incredibly capable, multiple businesses, keeping everything moving, always dependable, always across everything, raising the kids. And for a long time, I wore that like a badge, like I am Superwoman, because in a lot of ways it was impressive. I had built real things. I was making great money. I was, and still am, thank you very much, a really fabulous mother. But underneath doing all that, I had no idea who I actually was outside of what I was producing. I had no idea of who I was outside of all the things that I was doing, right? My identity was completely fused with my output. So I was proud of myself for achieving. I meant something because I did that. I was worthy because I could do X, right? Nothing was an inside of me movement. If I was busy, I was okay. If things were moving, I was okay. If I was needed, then my ego was like, yes, perfect. This is what we're living for. But the moment things slowed down or something fell apart, like my marriage ending or my business partner at the time stole the business from me, and I left with nothing. Lots of bits and pieces that I won't go too deep into here. Maybe that's another podcast episode. But that moment that things didn't go, or I wasn't in control or holding it all together, I didn't just feel this unsuccessful. I didn't feel this failure. I literally felt like I was nothing because I'd never separated from the role long enough to find out who I was underneath, right? I'd never separated from the roles that I had put myself under to go, who was I? And that's when I started to understand the most dangerous place to live is so inside of your life that you've forgotten you built it. Because what you build, who you build, you can rebuild, but only once you see it really clearly. Now, the issue that we have at the moment when we attach all our worth to our output is that it is, like the fish, really hard to step outside that because you do. And the fish is like, I'm going to die. If I step outside of this water, I'm going to die. And what your nervous system is telling you as well. But what I want to preface here and what I want to give you hope for or the understanding of is that what we built, you can rebuild, right? But you can only do it when you actually give yourself permission to look at things clearly. Because what happens when we step out of the water or out of the identity of our lives, the warning bells go off. And if you don't have a strong foundation, if you don't have a good connection with yourself, then the warning bells are going to be so loud that you're going to ignore, like you're going to step back into your life. That is what's the reason why you're going to turn around and do it again. So let me be clear about what I mean about separation, because this is not about disconnecting from your life. And this is not about running away from it. This is not about blowing it up. This is not about leaving your marriage. This is not what this is about. Separation is the act of becoming the witness to your own experience. So it's the moment you shift from, this is happening to me, to, can I see what's happening? And I can choose how I respond. Can you see the real difference in that? I find that so powerful. Because when we have this is happening to me mindset, we are in our lives from the inside, right? When we shift it to, I can see what's happening and I can choose how I respond, we are separate from the experience. We are pulling back that curtain. It's like if you imagined, a lens that pulls all the way back and you're literally looking down on your life, looking at you. So you're not in you, you're looking at you, you separate, right? It's the difference between being swept along by the current, by your resentment, by the things that are happening to you, by your conditioning, by your patterning. And the difference is standing on the riverbank and watching it move. So you don't get to be, but essentially you're detaching from your life. And I don't mean, again, I want to preface, I don't mean this in an emotional detachment way. What I mean is in the third person. You are actually with it, but you're no longer consumed by it. And from that place, everything becomes available. Everything becomes available because you get to start seeing your patterns. You can feel the truth. You can make a real choice and not a reactive one. But you have to give yourself permission and you have to be conscious of staying out of the water long enough to be the observer. And that is how you separate the deep emotion that is felt when that pull, that sense of guilt, that sense of shame is pulling you back into the water. When you can see that, oh, I'm experiencing guilt. Oh, I can see I'm experiencing shame. Oh, when you are standing on the riverbank or you pulled that lens out of your life and you can be the observer, you're not reactive, that's when things start to change drastically for you. So here are some signs that you're really not separate from your life. Here are some signs that you've stopped questioning your own story. When you say things like, everything just is what it is. This is just how I am. This is just my life. There's no curiosity. There's no inquiry. There's just that certainty of you telling yourself this is how it is. And usually a low-level exhaustion comes with that. And when we tell ourselves that this is just how it is, there's absolutely no room for change. You are so in your story. You have told yourself, this is my story, and there is no changing. Even though your soul could be really tapping, going, all right, it's time for change. It's time for growth. It's time to evolve. It's time for more. Your mental capacity, your mindset is, this is just my life. Okay. That is one of the first signs. Another sign is that your identity is fused with a role. So you are the mum. I'm the mum, or the leader. I'm the responsible one, the one who holds it all together. And somewhere along the way, you stopped being the person who plays that role, but you have actually become that role itself. Now you can go back to your childhood, your teens, and I'm sure you would have said, and even now, have a look at the things that you say about yourself. Like, I was always the strong one. In my teens, I was the wise one. And I played up into those roles before they actually I became the role. So there was no separation. The identity was, that's who I am. Now, if I didn't want to be the wise one, or if my ego was so hell-bent on getting it right and helping people and supporting people that I just became that. If I didn't have that, I was like, who was I? So you can see how the separation, the ability to separate from these I statements or I am these statements, can actually start giving you an opportunity to go, is that actually me, or is that just a role that I've taken on? Is this who I want to be? Is this who my soul wants me to be? Or is this just a role that I've taken on? So another way that you can see that you're living in without the separation is that you are very, very reactive. And we see this all the time. Every day we just respond. We respond to what's urgent, to what's needed, to the kids, to what's expected, to my responsibility. You're responding to life. You have to have it all banged up against each other, one task to the next task to the next task. And if someone asks you, what do you actually want? You pause for longer than feels comfortable. This happened to me over and over again. And if someone asks you, what do you actually want? You might really struggle to answer it. For me, I struggled so hard that it would literally put me in tears. We had this thing that we played every New Year's. It was like, what did you achieve last year? What do you want to achieve this year? And I would always be the last one to go at the table, and I would always burst into tears. I don't know what I've achieved. I don't know what I want. That's how deep in the role I was. These roles that I put on myself had so deeply become my identity. I could not see any way out of it. And from that, it is so uncomfortable, right? So instead of facing off with that uncomfortable process, we stay busy in our roles, responding, making everything urgent, making sure everyone's needs are met, making sure we're abandoning ourselves to feel good, because that's the role that we've decided to play. So if any of that has resonated with you, and even as I'm recording this podcast, oh my gosh, so many memories of like it not triggering because I've had my days, but it really is like, God, I was so deep in this for so many years. So this is why I'm so excited that I'm able to record this and send it to you, because I know that these will change your life. And I know that if you've resonated with anything that I've said, you're like, oh, God, that is me. The first thing is, yes, I'm going to teach you how to separate, but two, really, really, really commit to this practice, because be that fish that feels uncomfortable knowing, okay, the fish might die, but you can be outside knowing that it feels so uncomfortable. It feels like you're going to die, but know that you're not. That's where I want you to put yourself. So how to separate. This is where I want to give you something practical, because separation isn't a one-time event. It's a practice, and it has 3 parts. So step 1 is to create a gap between the stimulus and the response. So most of us are operating on instant reaction. Bang, 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 right? Something happens, we respond. Someone says something, we feel something, we react. Yes, I still do this as well, but we must practice a separation, especially with the kids. But the practice here is actually quite simple. So before you respond to anything, I do want you to pause, even for 30 seconds, which in itself feels uncomfortable. And ask yourself, is this response a choice or a pattern? You don't need to answer it perfectly. You just need to introduce the question, because the question alone creates the gap, and the gap is where your power lives. Now, I know when I say this, it can seem quite easy to listen and put it in practice. And when you're in that heated moment, when things are happening, when shit's going down, it is hard to create that gap. But I'm telling you now, if you want to say to yourself, that's hard, then it will continuously be hard for you. If you want to say to yourself, okay, it might be hard and I'm going to commit to creating this gap over and over again until it becomes who I am, then it will happen too. This is another choice that you get to make. So this is the practice. Create the gap before you respond, when you are feeling heated, when you are feeling urgency, when you are running late, whatever it is that you're feeling, you can feel your adrenaline rise, or it can go the other way as well. When you're putting your alarm on and you snooze it, when you are overeating, right? Create the gap. Ask yourself, is this a choice or is it a pattern? Really important. Okay, the next thing we do is we want to observe without judgment. And anyone, like I always say in all my courses, this is a really, really important step, because we need to look at ourselves with compassion and not judgment. How do you observe your life without judging yourself? The judgment keeps you in the pattern. The observer, as if you're the third person, as if you're looking at your best friend, looking at your child, looking at your partner. Well, sometimes we can judge our partners harshly, but being the observer, you get to start watching your patterns. And the ego's first move is to judge. I can't believe you did that again. What is wrong with me? I know better than this. Those statements are not observation. That's criticism wearing the mask of awareness. That is using your awareness and still giving yourself criticism anyway. And real separation is actually neutral. My favorite thing, again, anyone in my courses will know I say this all the time, but that's interesting is my favorite statement. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I love it. It gives me the gap. It gives me the separation. It makes me the observer rather than the reactor or the judgment. And I notice that I do this a lot. That's interesting. I wonder what's that about? Just like a scientist looking at data, not a critic looking for flaws, but someone who is observing you and going, hey, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about. I mean, think about that for a second. If you could pull back that part of your life and look at yourself through that lens, I wonder what you would see. I have a feeling you'd feel a lot more compassion when we start looking at this outside of judgment. But notice, even if you do start to judge in those moments, notice it. Why am I judging myself here? I'm just looking for information. I'm just looking for data. I'm just looking for my pattern. So that's interesting. I wonder what that's about is a really great statement. So the last thing that I do is ask the honest question. Once you've created this gap and you're observing without judgment, you can ask the question that actually matters. What is this pattern doing for me? Now, it's not what is it costing me? It's what is it doing for me? Because every single pattern serves a purpose. You've created it to keep you safe from something. Every behavior is protecting you. So when you see what that pattern is protecting, that's when you've found the real work. Now, I do want to preface this, and this is the work that I do with all my clients, because when you are in it, it is hard to see your blind spots. You might be able to create the gap. You might be able to look at yourself without judgment. But the next step is actually going, what is this pattern doing for me? Is this pattern coming from a wound that says I have to be perfect or no one's going to love me? Is this pattern coming from a wound that says if I don't act and behave a certain way, I'm going to be abandoned? Is this pattern coming from a wound that if I don't get all A's at uni, then my parents aren't going to approve of me? What is this pattern going on? Because it will be, as I said, protecting you from something. And this is the real work. When you can start noticing your patterns, that is the real work. That's the fish out of the water that's been in the uncomfortable air and gone, oh my gosh, I see my patterns. It's like, now what do I do? Do I jump back in the water because this is too hard to change? Or do I really face off with myself because this pattern does not need to protect me anymore? I am too far along with my life. I want different things. I'm growing my wealth, I'm deepening my relationship, and that pattern that was protecting me is now going to start costing me these things and dreams and desires that I really want to start experiencing. And then you start to create the shift. So this is what starts to happen. The soul starts to wake up. And this is what changes when you practice this, because you get to stop experiencing life as something that's happening to you, and you start experiencing it as something you're in a conversation with. There's a completely different quality to that. So instead of feeling trapped, you feel really curious. Instead of feeling reactive, you feel grounded. And instead of asking, why does this keep happening? You start asking, what am I ready to see? And that question changes everything. When you are in a position to say, show me what I'm ready to see, that question changes everything, because that is the state of evolving. That is the state of growth. I truly believe that nothing actually comes up until it's ready to be dealt with. And you can choose to keep pushing the pattern down, pushing the conditioning down, and it's going to just bubble away under the surface until the explosion happens, until the resentment happens. Or when it comes up, it's like, this is now what I get to look at, because you're no longer then looking as a passenger. You are the driver. You're not controlling every outcome, but you're conscious of the road that you're driving on. If you're listening to this and you're feeling it, I want you to hear this. The fact that you're embedded in your life doesn't actually mean you're weak. So I don't want it to come across as weakness, but it does mean that you've been doing the work of surviving, of building, of holding, of carrying. And that took everything that you had. It took every ounce of survival and emotion and gumption and push and success, and like it took everything. But now you're not just here to survive your life, you're here to actually live it. You're here to be in the driver's seat, and you're here to know the road that you're actually driving on. And that starts with being able to see it, and to be able to see it clearly, honestly, without the filter of the story you've been telling yourself, without the resentment, without the judgment. Being in the driver's seat means that you are not living in the story that you've been telling yourself you've had to live into to survive. And if there's one thing that I want you to take from today, it's this: you cannot change what you cannot see. And you cannot see clearly when you're buried inside of it. And this is where the work begins. Not with strategy, not with a goal, but with a pause and with a question. With the courage to become the witness to your own life and let yourself see what is actually there. Because that's where everything starts. That is the most beautiful place to be. It is the most liberating place to be. So if you are feeling called, if this is hitting something in you, try these practices and let me know how you go. I would love to hear. If there's part of you that knows that you've lost the thread of yourself somewhere in the doing and the building and the holding, this is exactly what we're going to do. I have a one-day workshop coming up called She Evolves. It is on the 22nd of May. This is the first pillar of everything that I'll teach. It is in Perth. And this is not another workshop where you sit and listen and take notes. This is where you actually step outside your life, look through it at a different lens, and actually do the work, where you separate this noise, where you get honest about what's really going on, and you leave with a clear sense of who you are and where you're actually going. Tickets are on sale now. It will be limited. The link is in the show notes. And if it's calling you, trust that if you have questions, you know how to find me on Instagram. I would absolutely love to hear and connect from you. But the fact that you listened to this far is not an accident. And I really, really mean that, because you don't need more information. You need to become the woman who can see her own life clearly and then choose it consciously. And that's what you deserve.